Hello, I'm Eileen DeFries. Welcome to my new channel. This is my first video, and it may be a little rough, but I hope you'll bear with me as I get used to filming on my own. I'm a little nervous starting off, but hopefully we'll get rolling and things will be smooth. You guys may have seen me before. I appear sometimes with my beautiful, lovely fiance, Julia Zelg, and she's the one who's got me started here. I became very interested in YouTube upon meeting her and finding out that she's a YouTube star and a very talented one. She's also a very talented musician, so you probably all know that if you follow her. Anyway, so I hope you'll join me on my journey. I'm really looking forward to this. I have a lot to talk about with you guys. I think there's a lot of things that we can connect on, and I'm really looking forward to it. So please subscribe, set your notifications, follow me on Instagram, and let's go. Okay, so this is my very first video, and it's going to be on coming out in the 80s. So I thought I'd start with a topic that might be meaningful to a lot of you, and that is coming to terms with your sexuality and how that was for me. As you probably know, I'm quite a bit older than probably a lot of my viewers. That's fine by me. I hope you're okay with that. Just to give you some background on who I am, I live in London. I live with my fiancée, Julia, here in London, and I've lived here on and off for 20 years. I grew up in New Jersey in America, so I'm American. I came out kind of late in life. I came out when I was 24, and there were a lot of reasons for that. I sort of had a delayed development in terms of my sexuality, in part, I think, because of some of the dynamics that were going on in my family. There was some illness. My mom died quite young. She died at 56. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and I think I didn't really pay attention to my own desires and needs until a few years after maybe a lot of other people did. Well, first let me tell you about my family constellation. The arrangement of my family was that I had a father, an American father, and an Irish mother. I grew up in New Jersey. I was one of three children, the youngest and the only girl. So I had two older brothers. And I grew up in a baby boomer neighborhood. So there were tons of kids in my neighborhood in New Jersey. So I was a real tomboy growing up. There were tons of boys in my neighborhood, many more boys than girls. So I just became a tomboy. And having two older brothers, it was just very natural. So I grew up kind of, an unusual way. There weren't imposed upon me, a strict code of gender behavior. My parents were just sort of cool, and it was really, really lovely, as I now know in retrospect, that they didn't put any pressure on me to, wear dresses, to wear pink, play with dolls and stuff, some of which I did just by choice. But for me, the world was really quite open and available to me because I wasn't forced to be girly. So that was a really beautiful thing to experience as a younger person, and I think that really informed my ability to finally acknowledge my homosexuality, my lesbianism, the fact that I love women. So when I was younger, I was tomboy, and I remember we had this babysitter. I can't remember her name, but I remember it was my earliest crush. I had a crush on this babysitter. And I remember being a little kid and, I don't know how young, but young enough to have developed feelings of warmth and affection for, they weren't sexual feelings, obviously, because I was a kid. But, I did develop a crush, an infatuation with her. And I loved when my parents would go out, so she would come over and be our babysitter. Anyway, it's just a kind of a vague memory, but I do remember, I don't remember having the same kind of feelings towards, say, any male teachers or anything like that. But I do remember having crushes on female teachers, though it took me a while to acknowledge that I really liked girls. I did have crushes and a sort of instant connection with girls, my friends, and things like that. And I never had that kind of relationship with boys. It's not that I don't like men. It's just that I love women. It's not about the dislike of anything. That's such a tired cliche that a woman would be with another woman because she can't get a man or because she hates men. But it took me a while to find myself. And I remember this one friend in grade school. She was a gymnast and would do all these gymnastic things on the lawn. And while that might not sound like the most romantic thing, I just totally loved her and I loved doing things with her, So it was kind of a passion for my female friends in my life that didn't become romantic. As I said, that wasn't until quite a few years later. So the way it went for me was thus. I went to school, to, grade school, middle school. I had a short-term boyfriend in grade school, like 8th grade. We went to the 8th grade prom. He was the brother of one of my good friends that I had a really big crush on. So he and I went to the 8th grade prom, and I don't even think we kissed or did anything. Again, at this point, I wasn't gay. I didn't know there was even a thing. I wasn't even that aware of it. Then I went to high school, and, I didn't have a boyfriend or anything. I had male friends and female friends. And again, it was the female friends that I really, really loved and had crushes on. There was one I had a really big crush on, and she was a friend. And I used to get so nervous around her. And I tried to be natural. And one time, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did this. One time we were in her house. She was from the rich part of town, and she had a pool table. And we were playing whatever it was, pool or ping pong, in her basement. And I remember looking in her eyes and thinking she looked like a tiger. I don't know why I thought that, and then I told her she looked like a tiger, and then I just blushed so bad. Oh, I just remember oh my God, it was terrible. It was awful. And she just looked at me like, okay. Anyway, she was a really nice friend. I don't think she knew what was happening, but it was me, it was kind of erupting to the surface, my crush on her. And the only thing I could say was she looked like a tiger. I don't mean like a sexy tiger. I just mean that she reminded me of a tiger. I don't know what I was saying. Anyway, so that was in high school. And then in my senior year in high school, I had a boyfriend, a nice guy. In fact, I hate to use this term, but I'm going to say it because you'll recognize it. I lost my virginity to him, and which is an odd thing. It sort of prizes a purity that is kind of makes me feel creepy, that they assign women this idea of virginity, and that a man can take it away, like it's property. Well, I elected to sleep with him, was the truth, and it wasn't anybody taking anything from me. It wasn't a great experience by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a bit of a surprise. It wasn't assault, but we didn't talk about it beforehand. It wasn't this like incredible romance where we had this long discussion about it, but rather just he sort of sprung it on me. So I had a boyfriend in high school. We went to the senior prom and everything. And I liked kissing him. And, he used to write me poetry and stuff and slip it into my locker. Kind of sweet stuff, but it just wasn't really for me. I wasn't deeply engaged in it. But I still wasn't thinking in terms of, I wasn't acknowledging that I had really prominent feelings for a female friend or two. So I had that boyfriend, then we graduated high school. I went to university, and in my second year, I met a woman who was a singer. I happened on to the campus cafe where you could get food and beer and things, and they would sometimes have live singers. Well, one night we happened in there, some friends and I, and this beautiful blonde woman was standing on the stage with a guitar, and wow, I just fell in love with this woman instantly, like really instantly. She was just singing songs that I knew very well because I really was a big Joni Mitchell fan, like a long time ago. I still think she's great, but I don't really listen to her now. Yeah, so I just fell in love with this woman. She was really something. And we stayed for the whole evening, and I think I spoke to her afterwards, and that began what I would call a real beautiful romantic friendship. We both loved each other. She was straight. The drummer was her boyfriend, and I wasn't seeing anybody at the time, but I felt that I was still straight. But I remember one night we had gone to a lecture by this educator. I don't actually remember what he did exactly, but his name was Leo Buscaglia, and he discussed love, and it was a very moving presentation. It might be all horseshit for all I know, really, but I remember being very moved by it. And this woman and I, this friend and I, walking back to our dorms, because she still lived on campus and I lived on campus. And I remember turning to her and saying, I love you. I really love you. And I meant it platonically, but it was also a romantic love that I wasn't able to realize yet. But it was really, really lovely to be able to tell her that I loved her. And she told me she loved me back. And we had a really intense friendship for a couple of years, but we never got together. We never had a romance or anything. But it was another sort of indication to me that it was another experience where I had a really intense friendship with a woman. So then I dropped out of college. My mother had gotten very, very sick, and I moved back home. I went to college in South Jersey, and I moved back home to northern New Jersey. And my mom ended up dying about a year later. So it was, a pretty upsetting year and everything. And I didn't actually know she was going to die, but she did. It was very, very sad. And another video, hopefully not an upsetting one, but I'll talk about family loss and how that can change one. Anyway, that's for another video. So I lost my mom that year, and I ended up living back at home for, I think, another year. So then I took a job in a restaurant in New Jersey, and I had one night waited on a male and female couple. They were older, like quite a bit older than me, maybe 15 years older than me. They were probably mid-30s or something. And they were just so much fun. They were just so much fun. And the woman was really pretty, and I was instantly attracted to her, not the guy. Although they were both, we were all sort of flirting. It was this crazy situation. I don't know if they were really drunk when they came in or something, but it was just a really fun situation. So anyway, so I waited on them, and they said, "What are you doing later? Why don't you come and meet us for a drink?" So I was like, okay. So I went and met them, and it was really, really fun. And I was really hoping to see the woman again, and I ended up seeing her again. I think she asked me to come meet her for a drink or something. And we ended up that night kissing. And that was, we both had a bit to drink, and we ended up kissing, and it was really powerful, like just a really powerful experience. And it just opened up a door for me that was so in need of being opened. We made out. It was so amazing. It was like this dam just broke. It was like a tsunami. I was just overwhelmed with feeling. So another revealing thing for me was that there was a university near my home, and I used to go to the library there. There was a poet that I really liked named Adrienne Rich. She's a gay woman, a lesbian. Anyway, I used to take down her books and go sit at one of the desks in the library at the university, and I'd read her books. And oh my God, it was like just a dam burst. It was so spot on eroticism, the kind that was growing inside me towards women. And she had it right there on the page. So it was just so beautiful. It was really, really powerful experience. Very, very arousing. So it was really hot. So then I kind of just knew, I knew that I had never felt that way before, but I wanted to explore it. So I had a friend who went to Dartmouth College, and she had an affair with a female dancer. And I rang her up, and, I said I had something to share with her. And she said, "Oh, great." I said, "It's pretty important to me, and I just wanted to talk to you about it." And she said, "Okay, great, let's meet for lunch." So we met for lunch, and I told her that I thought I was bisexual. And she said, "That's really wonderful. Why don't you go experiment and see if you are?" And, that was her advice. It was good advice. It's exactly what I did. So I was still living in New Jersey, with my father and our cats. And she told me the name of the place to go. She knew of this bar for women in Midtown, New York. So one night I drove in and parked my car and went to this bar. And I was so traumatized by doing it by myself. I'm pretty brave, I think, but this was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. But I got up the courage to go in. So I went into the bar, and the first thing I saw was a telephone. Well, I saw a bar, and I saw women sitting around, with other women and stuff. And it was really thrilling to see that. But I was so nervous. There was a telephone like halfway down. There was a fairly long walk to the bar, if I remember correctly. And I just remember I walked in, and I just felt so nervous. I walked to the telephone, and I pretended to put a coin in, and I pretended to talk to somebody on the phone. I don't know why I did that, except that I'm quite sure it was probably because I was so nervous. And I still remember to this day the anxiety I had additionally about the possibility that that phone could ring. Payphones don't usually ring, but sometimes they do. And I thought, oh my God, what if I'm standing here on the phone, trying to look cool, like I belong there, and then I'm just on the phone. And what if the phone rings? Anyway, so I was really anxious. So I hung up the phone, and instead of turning around and leaving, I walked to the bar and I ordered a drink. And then I sat down, and I was by myself, and I drank my drink, and the bartender started, talking to me and stuff. And, and I just said that it was my first time at that bar and that I didn't really know any bars in New York. And she told me the name of a club. Oh, and I just remembered it. The club's name was Sheescape. Oh my God, I can't believe I remembered that, because I've been trying all day to remember the name of it. Anyway, so it was called Sheescape, and it was like a club night But I remember going one night. I drove in, I had my best shirt on and my best white jeans. It was the 80s. And it was kind of a nice top for the 80s. But in retrospect, it just cracks me up. Anyway, the thing about that top is I was sitting in the car. I learned that club nights don't start till quite late. I learned that because I tried to go into the club night like 9 p.m., not 9 a.m. And then I walked in, there's like nobody there. They were still setting up. And I was like, oh, sorry. So I went and got some Chinese food and went back into my car and sat in my car. So I was sitting in my car, getting out my Chinese food and starting to eat something. And all of a sudden there's a knock on my window. And I ended up tossing, I had this like broccoli with garlic sauce or something, and I ended up dropping it on my lap. There was a homeless guy who was knocking on my window to beg for some money, the poor guy. And I jumped, so I ended up spilling stuff on my perfect top. It was terrible. It was really upsetting. So I had like a sweater in the back seat or something. I had something that I was able to toss on. I don't know how I washed the stuff out. I must have smelled like soy sauce. But I still went into the club, and I ended up meeting a woman. She was very, very kind of sharp New Yorker. She was very direct. She was asking me all these direct questions. And she's like, so are you gay? And I said, no, I'm bi. And I remember she just looked at me and laughed. And I was like, what? And she said, oh, okay. I didn't know why she was laughing, and but then I realized that she was laughing because I said I was bi. And I guess that a lot of women like me, they sort of transition from being straight to feeling maybe they're bi to then owning their sexuality. Well, it took me a little while to own the full sexuality because I just didn't know. I didn't know what being gay was. I didn't know what being different was. And not that there aren't bisexual people, because obviously there are bisexual people. Bisexuality is a very real thing. I'm not knocking bisexuals, but this woman somehow knew that I was in transition, and she laughed, which maybe seemed mean, but she wasn't being mean. Anyway, I wasn't interested in getting to know her, so nothing happened with us. So I felt like I was on my way, that I was making progress on this developmental sort of curveball that landed in my life, and that was my sexuality was going in a direction that was quite different from the conventional ones, the conventional directions, which is mostly heterosexuality. So I was really launched, I was on my way. I hadn't a girlfriend yet. I hadn't done anything but kiss a woman, but I was on my way, and it felt really good. And then the next week I came back. Then I was, kind of looking around to maybe meet someone else or talk to other people or whatever. So, and then this cute woman came up to me with very pale blue eyes. And we just started talking, and she was really, really friendly and warm and bought me a drink, if I remember correctly. And she was just really, really sweet and lovely. And, I really liked talking to her a lot. She was everything that this other woman wasn't, unfortunately. So as it turns out, we met again. I think we made arrangements to meet there, at another night. And we ended up going home together that night to her home. And it was the first time I'd slept with a woman, and it was wondrous. It was everything that my sensual life was leading up to. The thing that I didn't know what it was when I was younger became the thing that I always knew was, and that was that I was gay, that I loved women, and that I had found my home with women. It was such an exquisite thing to discover. It wasn't the relationship to end all relationships, but it did turn into a 3.5-year relationship. It was my first relationship, and it was with a very nice person, and I was introduced to intimacy with another woman, and it was really profoundly beautiful to be launched, on my way. And I just, it's hard to describe the feeling of knowing you arrived at home, at the thing that is your home. It was wonderful to me to discover a woman's body and to be discovered and to experience the arousal and satisfaction of it was just divine, really. It was, everything I fantasized about, and I didn't know quite what to fantasize about. Porn wasn't everywhere by then, by the way. It wasn't like it is now where everybody knows about sex, you know what I mean? Also, in that time in my life, I ended up moving into New York. So this person and I moved in together and lived together for about 3 years. So I came out in 1983. And by come out, I mean I had my first experience with a woman. So another kind of coming out is what happened with my family. And that was that I didn't so much tell my family I was gay, but I just started including my girlfriend in family things. So my family was out in New Jersey. We would spend holidays together, like 4th of July, Christmas, Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. So what I started doing was not to be rude to my family or anything, but I just didn't mention anything. I would invite my girlfriend home with me for the holidays, and she would be welcomed and spoken to as though she were either my friend or my girlfriend. And it was never discussed, but I think it was understood. I wasn't afraid. I just didn't feel any pressure really to define who my partner was. Now, after all these years later, I wonder if maybe part of it was a little bit of shyness of a sort. Not so much fear, but shyness. I knew no one would challenge me. It didn't sort of want to borrow a poet's expression, force the moment to its crisis. I didn't want to have an uncomfortable conversation, really. I knew I would always continue to be gay and, that I would be fully who I was and I would bring that partner to Christmas and other things, in part because I knew my family wouldn't be upset. Now, the way this revealed itself was one night I was having a conversation with my father on the phone, and we were talking about one of my brothers who was having some trouble with alcohol. He was, becoming dependent on alcohol and abusing it. And then suddenly my father said to me, he said, "What about you, Eileen? How are you doing? Are you gay? Because if you are, I'm fine with that." He didn't even let me finish. He didn't even let me say anything, but he wanted me to know. When he asked me the question, he quickly wanted me to know that he was fine with it. I thought that was really beautiful. And I said, "Oh, that's really, really lovely. Wonderful to hear, Dad. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate that." And my brothers, we didn't ever have a formal conversation about it, but it did come up in sort of we did acknowledge it, and, everybody was like, "It's fine," Well, it was really lovely to hear my father say that. It was so generous, and, I'd known so many people already by that time whose family turned away from them. It was the 80s. It was still an early days in acceptance and understanding of non-heterosexuality. So I was very grateful that I had that openness from my father, but I never expected anything different. And sadly, my mother was dead by that time. So I never got to share it with her. I feel pretty strongly that she would have been equally as welcoming, in part because my two parents and my two brothers and my family environment made me who I was, and I was someone who was going to be who she was without apology. And that's who they raised. I feel very bad for people who, and a lot of people don't have the good fortune of that experience. So I feel really bad for people who have family working against them, or who have religions working against them, or co-workers or friends who don't accept them for their difference. This is a coming out story, but it's also a love note to my family to say thank you. None of them are alive right now, sadly, but thank you for creating in me a person who could be fully realized as herself. And I'm grateful for a family that allowed me to do that. And all of you out there, whatever you are, whatever you want to be, whatever you've been, I want you to have the courage to be who you are, whether you find support in family, in friends, in YouTube, whatever. I hope you are comfortable being who you are and that you aren't suffering for it. Be strong, persevere, find your comfortable place, and be you. Okay, well, there it is. Thank you so much for tuning into my first video. I was really happy to have you here, and I hope you liked it. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations or anything you'd like to see within reason, just let me know in the comments. It's been really lovely spending this time with you, and I can't wait to see you again. Please subscribe, please set up your notifications, and please follow me on Instagram if you would. Thank you so much, you guys. It's really delightful to be here with you. Hope to see you very soon. Love you.